Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast, where we provide you with your weekly diagnosis of everything fantasy football. Whether it's season-long leagues, dynasty, DFS, or sometimes even IDP, we got you covered all year long. Let's do it. Let's get to it. Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast. I'm your host, John June. And of course, I got my guy with me, Greg Penniman. Greg, how we living? How we doing, bro?
Living good today, getting back in the swing of things, after yesterday's episode, getting more and more hyped for the season to start. Got some running back news on the day we do running back, so it just is tie in. They knew.
Yeah, I mean, we got quarterback news on the day we did quarterbacks with Colt McCoy getting released, and now we get running back news on the day we get running back. So who knows what
Yep.
news we'll get tomorrow when we do the wide receiver position. But like you mentioned, we did get some running back news. Indianapolis Colts star running back Jonathan Taylor has requested a trade recently, and the Indianapolis Colts have since allowed him to seek out a trade, seek out some partners, and apparently they've gained some interest. They did give a deadline of Tuesday for him to find a trade partner. Otherwise, he would not be traded. I don't think that's really a hard deadline, there. So, in regards to Jonathan Taylor and him, potentially getting traded, it seems that he's going to stay on the PUP list, the physically unable to perform list for the Indianapolis Colts. So even if he does get traded, is going to miss the first 4 games of the season required to by rule. So going to be interesting to see how that impacts his fantasy value there. Definitely for me, Greg. I think we were talking a little bit off air. I think he's probably outside my top 20 for sure. Maybe in the between 20 and 24 is when I'd start to consider him, just because of the risk that's associated with him. Obviously, we know the talent of Jonathan Taylor and some of the teams that he's rumored to end up with, like by Miami Dolphins, which would be a very nice landing spot for him. But Greg, what about you? Where are you at with JT and the outlooks for his fantasy production or this season going forward?
Yeah, I think definitely coming into season with the full 17 games you were expecting, maybe for JT, he's definitely a top 12 player. I had him at 9 in my initial rankings, but with this news about the trade uncertainty and also the pup list, him missing some games, 4 games at least, that's got to also bump him out of the top 20 for me. I know he's, probably put him around that Alvin Kamara range, where I know Kamara is going to be out for about 3 games. So that's kind of where I'm seeing him now. But even if he comes back, with another team or anything, then he's got to kind of rev up. So you probably won't expect him to really get going by like week 6, week 7. So just know that if you're taking him, he can still be a league winner for sure. Like that's the definition of that, coming in, helping out teams late and throughout the year. So definitely want to still keep him on your radar. But for that, those RB1 territory, that's probably out of that.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there. Like you said, this is our running back show, episode 314, our running back breakdown. Where like we like to do here, break down our sleepers, our breakouts, our busts, our my guys, get into our top 3 running backs and how we view them before revealing our top 12 here. So without further ado, let's kind of jump right into it. But before that, do have to give a public service announcement. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment. If you got a question, we're gonna play a little ADP game. If you guys have some more that you want to throw in the chat, definitely throw those in the chat if you're watching live on YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. But yeah, without further ado, let's kind of jump right into it, Greg. So I'm gonna kick it to you, man. Who's your number 1 running back for the 2023 fantasy season?
For this season, I'm sticking with Austin Eckler for the Los Angeles Chargers. Los Angeles Chargers. Sticking with him, Austin Eckler. He's just a PPR machine, doing it both on the ground and receiving. touchdown numbers have been insane over the last 2 years. Just under 1,000 yards rushing over the last 2 years, and both years, each of the last 2 years, and also receiving yards close to that 700 receiving yard number, and then getting it done receiving with about 6-7 touchdowns a year receiving wise, and then 12-13 touchdowns on the ground. So that's just everything you need ideally for a running back. And I'm also a believer in this Chargers offense. As you know, Justin Herbert is my guy for me. Uh, I'm pretty much a bounce back year for this offense as a whole. So I think Eckler is the main driving force in this, and just give him that slight edge over my number two. But yeah, Austin Eckler, he's the man. He's gonna keep doing what he's got to do. Still in his prime as far as his running back career. So I think I'm gonna go with him.
Yeah, most definitely, man. Actually, I'm glad you brought up Austin Eckler as your number one running back, because that made me realize that I forgot to run through the top 12 running backs from last year in terms of fantasy points per game. Number one running back on the year was the aforementioned Austin Eckler, who actually believe I had I had him as my number three running back last year, so I was pretty high on Eckler. I think we both were for sure. But he was the number one running back. Number two on the season was Christian McCaffrey. 3 was Josh Jacobs. 4, Derrick Henry. 5, Saquon Barkley. 6, Joe Mixon. 7, Nick Chubb. 8, Breece Hall. 9, Tony Pollard. 10, James Conner. 11, Ramondre Stevenson. And 12, Aaron Jones. Again, that was fantasy points per game. Obviously, Breece Hall, he kind of snuck in here on me. I would not have included him had I realized he was in there, depending on, based on the amount of games that he missed. But he did have a really good, rookie season. But without further ado, I'm going to jump into my number one running back on the season, because I don't disagree with anything you said. Austin Eckler is fantastic. He's great. I'm just going to go back to, what I used to know, and go with Christian McCaffrey, man. He's the number one running back on the season for me. He was my number number two running back last year behind Jonathan Taylor. He played in all possible games for the first time since 2019, but only 6 of those games were in a Carolina Panthers uniform, obviously, as he was then traded to the San Francisco 49ers in Week 7. And he averaged 19.7 PPR points over his first 6 games as a Panther, but under head coach Kyle Shanahan, went on to average an additional 2 PPR points per game at 21.7. So if you exclude the first game he actually played in a Niners uniform, because remember, he was traded kind of midweek there, and was playing on a limited role against the Kansas City Chiefs. So if you don't really count that game, and you extrapolate, the remaining games that he played as a San Francisco 49er, he was on a 17 game pace of 1,200 rushing yards, 85 receptions, 700 and about 50 receiving yards, to go along with 17 total touchdowns. So not quite the 1,000 running back that we remember, but still a very good player and worthy of being the number one running back off the board.
Yeah, can't disagree with that. He's my number 2 guy. It's really a good choice there. I mean, I wouldn't be angry with that at all. He's just such a factor. He's a machine when he gets on the field. He's so versatile. I was ready for him to play quarterback once Brock Purdy got hurt in that playoff game too. I mean, he can do it all. So I'm expecting to put up the same amount of numbers he did last year, even in Carolina. Good usage for him because he's Brock Purdy's best friend for sure. Him and Debo, and then he'll get that offense going.
Yeah, most definitely will get that offense going there. My number 2 running back is your number 1 running back, so it's funny how that works out, because I have Austin Eckler here, who, again, didn't disagree with anything you were saying before. What a year he had, finished as, the RB2 in 2021, but then he went out and finished as the RB1 last year in 2022. He's the focal point in this offense, back-to-back 900-yard rushing seasons to go along with, just about 650 receiving yards and 722 respectively over his last 2 seasons. I like to consider him kind of CMC light, which maybe that's a little unfair, considering he's damn good player in his own right. Just hasn't hit the 1,000-yard rushing mark, so maybe that's why I say that. But he's got Kellen Moore now as the offensive coordinator, which shouldn't hurt. Obviously, we saw what Tony Pollard was able to do as a dual threat running back in that system. But again, lots of reasons to love Eckler and his outlook heading into the season.
Yeah, most definitely. Those two are gonna kill.
Yep, definitely for sure. And then I'm gonna just jump into my running back three, man, because I'm gonna get out the way. Um, wouldn't feel right if I wasn't extremely high on the rookie running back. Just wouldn't be a fantasy football diagnostics podcast if I wasn't high on the rookie running back. So, my running back prospect model goes back to 2018, and since then, Saquon Barkley was the highest graded running back by a decent amount. We've had some challengers along the way, some guys that if they had gotten the draft capital, they would have been able to overtake him. But we've never had anybody actually overtake him until now, because between his production, athleticism, and draft capital, Bijan Robinson is the best running back prospect that my model has graded, period. And he was drafted fifth overall by the NFL by an NFL team that happened to lead the NFL in rush attempts last year. He's a dual threat
There you
running back,
go.
3 down ability, potential to be truly special out of the backfield as a receiver. He's priced accordingly. He's going off the board as the running back 3, according to the multi-site ADP that 444 has. So you are going to have to spend a top 5 pick on him to acquire him on your fantasy team. But I promise you, it'll be worth it. And this will be the last time that he'll come that cheap. So yeah, just enjoy the ride.
Yeah, I mean, this hot, sexy pick. I love it. He's definitely going to be killing for a team that definitely wants to run the ball. I mean, even if they're not going to pass it to him, they are going to give it to him first down and second down for sure. So that's definitely a good assessment. But my number 3, man, I gotta go with my guy, man, Saquon Barkley. He's back, baby. He's gonna be my number 3 running back on the season. Got his first full healthy year since his rookie year last season, and he did what he had to do on the field, being a captain on and off the field, getting over 1,000 yards, over 1,300 yards rushing, and also I think there's room for him to grow even in the receiving end. Early in his career, when he was averaging getting close to 400 yards receiving. He only got 338 last year. I think he can get back to a closer number, close to that 500-yard receiving number, and get back to what he was doing in his rookie year when he got almost close to 90 receptions. But that number was ridiculous. Broke that rookie receiving reception record for a running back. But he's just a monster. Got his 1-year deal. I think even in that, I think the Giants are going to just weigh on him even more. He's still in his prime for as a running back. And yeah, Saquon Barkley, he's going to be dominant for his offense. It starts with him. He makes Daniel Jones look good.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously he had a top 5 running back season last year in terms of PPR points per game. He was fantastic. The Saquon Barkley that we remember. The only I have no issue. I don't see any. He's 100% in the range of outcomes, finishing RB3 or higher potentially. He's that talented. It's just, do you wonder, do they rely on him as much with the Darren Waller now and adding these pieces? Because he last year he was it.
Yeah, that's true.
It was it. So that's the only question I have. But definitely, um, you know, don't not hating on Saquon Barkley by any means. He's actually in my top 7. So I'll just round out my top 3 here, or my top 12 here. So obviously McCaffrey, Eckler, Robinson are my top 3. Derrick Henry comes in at 4. Tony Pollard comes in at 5. Josh Jacobs 6. Saquon Barkley 7. Nick Chubb 8. Joe Mixon 9. Aaron Jones 10. Jahmyr Gibbs 11. And James Conner coming in as my running back 12.
Okay. Yeah, after Saquon for me at 3, I got 4 Bijan Robinson, 5 Nick Chubb, 6 Derrick Henry, 7 Josh Jacobs, 8 Joe Mixon, 9 Tony Pollard, 10 Najee Harris, 11 Ramondre Stevenson, and 12 Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, so not too vastly different. I mean, we got the same names, just a slightly different order. Um, but yeah, man, let's kind of jump into the superlatives now. So we're gonna start with the bust, with the running back bust, and again, I got to preface this by saying we are not saying this player sucks or they're not good at football. We're just saying that the price that it takes to acquire that player is probably slightly more expensive than you might want to pay or than what that player should be worth based on maybe their situation or some other variables. So I will start this time with my running back bust, and I'm going to go with James Cook out in Buffalo. He's going off the board as the running back 24, and I really can't get on board with that. I mean, don't hear what I'm not saying. James Cook is a good player. I think he has a fantastic skill set, but I think he's better served as part of a running back tandem as opposed to going out and being the lead guy. The Bills' backfield is a bit murky. I mean, obviously you have their star running back Josh Allen in the fold, but they also added Damian Harris from the New England Patriots, who obviously we know him to be a big physical running back, early down thumper there. So it kind of feels like Cook is going to split this work with Harris and Allen, between the 20s, but see none of the work down by the goal line because Josh Allen becomes the number one, option down there. Damian Harris, I'm sure, is going to be an option that they go to when they get down there. I just don't see James Cook. His production is going to have to come, by the way of the receiving game, and you hope that there's a path there as a receiver out of the backfield. He's very good at that, and Devin Singletary is not there to soak up those targets out of the backfield. So you're definitely within the range of outcomes, but it's just not something I'm willing to bet on. Even if you look at Devin Singletary, he struggled to really put together RB2 seasons as the lead guy in Buffalo, and so you got to pay an RB2 price tag to acquire him. And again, at that price, where I've got him as an RB3, I'm just going to have to be out.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, if you didn't have him there, I probably would have took James Cook as my bust as well. Yeah, just it's just tough in Buffalo. The only one I feel like that they can get move that needle and be a true running back is if they trade for JT. So I'm hoping they do that actually.
Nah, I'm not really trying to have that. It's, I mean, even from a fantasy perspective, it's like almost like my Josh Allen rushing touchdowns go away.
True. It's just that all goes away.
And I can't watch JT have a 6 touchdown game on the Bills and be really happy about that. Or was it five? Five. Anyway, neither here nor there. Greg, your running back bust on the season.
Yeah, I'm going with Miles Sanders on this one. He's priced as also RB2 a little bit higher actually than James Cook. I think RB21 according to Fantasy Pros. And yeah, that's also about priced as a mid-tier RB2. When you got guys like James Conner going behind him, Alvin Kamara, I think going behind him, I'll still take his production of him. Isaiah Pacheco, who I think could be he may have a huge role. In this in this offense with the Chiefs. So yeah, I think just with Miles Sanders, he's coming off a high year last year, probably his best year of the season, of his career with the Eagles. But in this situation with Carolina, not as good of a team. Definitely not going to be as good as a team as the Eagles are. O line is not going to be as strong. Less red zone opportunities means less touchdowns for him. So I think it's not going to be the case where he's going to be that mid-tier RB2 that he's being drafted at.
Yeah, no, I definitely can't hate this one either. And I feel like we talk about running backs with bad teams, and I'm going to talk about a running back on a bad team a little bit later for a variety of different reasons. But when you look at Miles Sanders, um, going to be a lot of negative game script. I mean, we believe he has this ability as a pass catcher. We haven't, really seen it in its entirety throughout his time in Philadelphia. Maybe you could say that was had to do with the quarterbacks that he was playing with and some of that. But me, I always like Miles Sanders, the player. So I'm a little privy to him, but I definitely see your reasons why you have him down here as a bust for sure. My running back sleeper on the season, Zach Charbonnet, man.
Okay. Oh,
Wait,
that's mine.
that's yours, but
Spoiler alert, yo! Spoiler alert. Not
we're going to talk about mine, Zach Charbonnet. Probably my favorite running back to target as I get later in the drafts. Going back to even dynasty draft season, he was one of my favorite running back prospects to add to my teams because he's definitely talented. Scored a decent grade in my running back prospect model, but despite not going in the first round, and he came at a bit of a discount in dynasty drafts because the Seahawks drafted Charbonnet in the second round 1 year after drafting Kenneth Walker III in the second round. So Charbonnet gets overlooked. He was overlooked in dynasty drafts and dynasty rookie drafts. I think he's overlooked now. He's going off the board as the running back 37, according to 4for4.com's multi-site ADP, which to me essentially is the floor in my mind. We can't really when you're drafting these backup running backs, right? Like where their ranking is from a projection standpoint, you can't draft them at that price because you're not really baking the injury potential into their projection, right? And that's what happens with Charbonnet from like a pure like sharing the backfield through the course of a season with Kenneth Walker. He probably projects out as an RB3, a top 36, top 37 option. But what happens if Kenneth Walker were to miss some time, right? Charbonnet in that instance would become a weekly top 15 option. So I think he's worth the pull of the trigger at his current price, and I'd be willing to overpay by a round on his current draft price of the 11th pick in the 9th round, just purely based on the talent standpoint. You are muted, sir.
First of the year for sure. Yeah, no, I think I definitely like this pick here for sure for Zach Charbonnet. It's going to be a name that's we're going to be talking about, early, especially in the waiver wire. I believe too.
Don't talk about him on the waiver wire show. I mean, well, there's going to be leagues that aren't listening, so they're going to have to pick him up. But if you're
Right.
please
Yeah.
do not let Charbonnet make it to your waiver wire. Do not leave your draft without him. Just have him on your bench, please. Greg, what about your running back sleeper, man?
Yeah, man, I'm going Alexander Madison. I think it's just a surprise to me. He's going in PPR leagues, according to Fantasy Pros, RB21 and ADP. Just his production over the last couple of years without Dalvin Cook. When he gets that starter, it was 5 games over the last 2 years. Dalvin Cook has been out. Madison's averaging over 21.2 fantasy points per game, averaging 4 receptions per game. PPR value is there. I just think when he starts and he's got his own role, he's always produced at a very high level. In an offense that's going to be good. Same role is going to be there. I think they're going to give him the ball. They're going to give him opportunity. This is an offense that's going to be in the red zone, getting touchdown opportunities. So I see him as a very strong high in RB2. Definitely can give you, or going to give you RB1 weeks this year. And I'm going reaching for that guy, Alexander Madison, in every draft.
Yeah, I like this one too. He's a guy that I think came to mind for me as well. I've got him as RB17 on the season, so definitely ahead of his current draft price. There, is running back 21 or running back 20. But yeah, I agree. I think he's definitely talented. People sometimes we elevate that backup running back who's ascending into the starter role, but what we've always said on this show is that even back to when Alexander Madison was a rookie, we've said pick him up because when he would come in on the field and he would get in there, sometimes you couldn't even tell the difference between him.
Couldn't tell the difference. The same locks and everything, yo.
They had the same dreadlocks and everything, and it was just like, stash this guy. And Greg, it was almost was your catchphrase. If you draft Dalvin Cook, you draft Alexander Madison.
Yes, sir.
So I definitely agree here. I don't think we're necessarily elevating that player. I think this player deserves to be elevated because they are good in their own right in Alexander Madison. So definitely love this one. My running back breakout. Guess what? It is a rookie running back, just not the rookie running back that you think. Jahmyr Gibbs. So obviously, I would have loved to go Bijan Robinson. Would have absolutely. Loved. He hasn't done it yet. I get it. It's still fair.
I know.
It's just like he's priced as the running back 3. So it's pretty clear that the kind of year that we're expecting him to have as a community, at least Jonathan Taylor, it was like he was a second-round pick and he had to work his way up to being a first-round pick. Najee Harris, it was very similar. David Montgomery was like a third-round pick. This dude, Bijan is a top 3 pick. There's nothing, or he's a top 5. There's nothing I can do about it, so we already know. But Jahmyr Gibbs, though, there's something I could talk about here. I mean, um, if not for Bijan breaking my model and scoring out, grading out as the highest graded running back ever, going back to Saquon Barkley, I'd be here talking about Gibbs being the number 2 running back in my model ever behind only Saquon Barkley. But he's slightly overshadowed by his running back classmate and Bijan Robinson. But again, he's still third all time, going back to 2018. So obviously, he's a very talented player based on the production in college, the athleticism, and the draft capital. And then he ends up in a landing spot in Detroit, where if you've listened to the show for the last few seasons, I've been very high on DeAndre Swift. Like I was been very vocal about him and his role in that offense and how they view him. But it hasn't actually worked out between injuries and falling out of favor with the coaching staff. It just hasn't worked out. But Gibbs is essentially a souped up version of Swift. And I'm not saying he's bigger, faster, stronger. I don't mean that souped up version. I mean, from a prospect standpoint, Gibbs was the 12th pick in the draft, right? So he was a first round pick, was able to have that. DeAndre Swift didn't have that draft capital. Gibbs is, as good as Swift was as a receiver, Gibbs is better. So this is really a situation here where his athleticism, his role as a pass catcher is going to lead to an immediate role where I think he truly is the Alvin Kamara in this offense to David Montgomery's potential Mark Ingram. So I think a top 15 season, definitely in the range of outcomes. I've got him down as the RB11 on the season. You've got him down, Greg, as your running back 12. And I think he gets that done for us this season.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there. I mean, he's got to be the breakout for the running back community for me as well. Because just in general, like another point to add to that point is no Jamal Williams. Like that was a huge kind of backbone for the Detroit offense, and it took away a lot of touchdowns and a lot of opportunities from DeAndre Swift. So he doesn't have that big bruiser behind him to get those goal line opportunities. It's all Jahmyr Gibbs here. And he's definitely going to take advantage of the opportunity. I think offense that has been rolling since last year. We continued that they're going to keep rolling. Is one of the hottest teams in the NFC North.
Yeah, I mean, don't forget he does have David Montgomery there, so David Montgomery can play a little thorn in the side, but I don't think he's going to score 18 touchdowns that Jamal Williams scored last year. It seemed that at some point last year, the Lions wanted nothing to do with Swift, and it was pretty clear. It was almost like break in case of emergencies type stuff with DeAndre Swift and the utilization there that they had there. It was 100% the Jamal Williams show. But like you said, he's not here anymore. So they invested that high draft capital in Gibbs. Again, they did pay Montgomery some money, but I think we see a tandem role here and not just one guy getting all the work.
Yeah.
Greg, your breakout running back on the season.
Yeah, I think I also had Jahmyr as well.
You did, but you pivoted.
Oh, that's right. That's right, because you stole it from me. So Isaiah Pacheco, though, yes, that's my guy. Just in the offense, we were talking about. I was saying how Miles Sanders and these guys are getting drafted ahead of him. Isaiah Pacheco is going to be a guy that's going to be blowing up this year. I think, especially last year, he was riding that momentum. Took the job from Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Let Jerry McKinnon have his role. So he's kind of like solidified in his role. Isaiah Pacheco is going to get that early down work, running the ball. And, when the Chiefs, I think they want to continue to run the ball, especially with the receiver room that they have is not as strong as it used to be. It's going to run through Travis Kelce. Kadarius Toney is going to get a little bit of that work there, but Isaiah Pacheco is going to get a lot of opportunity here. And I think he's going to be high in RB2 and get RB1 weeks as well.
Yeah, I like this one too, man. Pacheco is a guy I think has been somewhat, I think his performance last year has been somewhat overlooked in the fantasy community.
Yeah,
I think people are kind of feeling as if he's not going to be able to really produce the way that he did down the stretch. But he was the guy for the Chiefs down the stretch in terms of running the football when they got into the fantasy playoffs and eventually the Super Bowl. I think his utilization went down a little bit in the Super Bowl, but he was the lead guy, had completely taken over Clyde Edwards-Helaire's role. So I'm in agreement with you. I think his price is pretty decent. I think he's going off the board outside the top 20. I think it might even be outside the top 24. So when you look at that and the offense that he's in and the touchdown opportunity, I mean, granted, the Chiefs, they like to throw the football when they get down to the goal line, but I've got him down Pacheco as the RB18 on the season, so right behind
Yeah,
Alexander.
yeah.
So
I think his ADP is around RB30. So yeah, that's a huge jump. I like that. I'm taking him. If I can get him in any draft, I'm expecting as your RB3. Like you're living.
yeah, especially if you're in a half PPR league, right? Like, I mean, again, I just put him down as RB18 in the PPR league, but in half PPR, I would be more inclined to probably have him higher, slightly higher, or even a standard league there too. So, I mean, I don't know who does that anymore, but
Yeah,
I'm not here to judge. We're very inclusive here at Fantasy Football Diagnostics. So, moving on to my guy, man, and Tony Pollard, man. I just there's something about him, something about this price. He's going off the board as the RB6 according to 44.com's multi-site ADP. I have him down as my RB5, so not too far. He had a fantastic season last year as the running back 9 in PPR fantasy points per game. He finished with his first 1,000-yard season. Didn't even need 200 carries to get it. Had 371 receiving yards, scored a total of 12 touchdowns on the season. This is the first offseason that he's going into the season as the lead guy for the first time ever. So, again, love Pollard's ability. His head coach says he wants to run the ball more. So we'll see what happens. I mean, if they throw the football, we obviously know they signed Brandon Cooks, but I think Tony Pollard is going to be a big part of the passing game as well. I think he's a home run selection at the end of the first round. He's got an ADP according to 4 of the second pick in the second round of 12-team leagues. If I can get him at the end of the first round in my leagues, and, able to pair him with maybe another running back or go running back receiver. If I can start my draft Tony Pollard, Garrett Wilson, I'd be really happy about that. Maybe that's a little bit of a preview into tomorrow's show at the receiver position. But I love Tony Pollard this year.
Yeah, definitely love that pick as well. It definitely, I mean, it hurts that your guy is like Dallas Cowboy, but you're in another conference, so it don't really matter. So it only makes sense that I have to stay in the division, stay in the NFC East, and go with my guy Quan Solo. You already know Saquon Barkley. He's gonna kill this year. I mean, I just got my Saquon jersey. I will go over and pull it out, but we're here. We're ready for it. Just a season where the Giants should be better offensively, and that will help him offensively as well. Getting in more opportunities in the red zone, and also he's not going to see all those probably the stack boxes that you were seeing last year. They got to respect the receivers. So I think it's just going to be a great year for Saquon. Just building up of what he did last year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we talked a little bit about Saquon off the top, as your running back 3, and my thoughts there. But you drafted him in our League of Extraordinary
Did
People,
at the
so you
7
are
at number 7. So
number
yeah.
7 overall. So you are not just giving out false information that you would not follow yourself. You was living up to it. So, and you got the team name Quan Solo, like you just said.
Quan
So,
Solo, man, yes sir.
so we're gonna play some ADP game. Um, as we always do. So we're just going to give 2 guys, talk about their ADP, and talk about which guy we prefer at the price. Just pull that up. And so the first one we want to talk about is Kenneth Walker versus Damian Pierce. 2 second-year running backs who were highly productive last year. Both, tailed off at the end due to injury. So Kenneth Walker is going off the board as the running back 17, the 10th pick in the 4th round. Damian Pierce going off the board as the running back 18, the 12th pick in the 4th round. So they are going literally 1 spot apart by position, two spots apart by draft selection according to 4for4.com's multi-site ADP. Greg, which of these guys do you prefer at cost?
I think when there are two guys that are, this close in ADP, I'm gonna always lean towards the player on the better team. I'm gonna lean so that in this case would be Kenneth Walker. Seahawks were basically on the verge of a playoff team last year, and I think they are going to continue to have Geno Smith be a successful team this year. And that that leads to being in the red zone more, having more touchdown opportunities. The big play, I think, aspect of it as well. Kenneth Walker seemed like he was making a huge play every week. I think that's an explosive factor that you can't ignore, especially in fantasy. So, one play can make your day. So I definitely like that, having that option as well. Damian Pierce is slouch for sure, but in weeks where Houston's going to be a bad team, negative game script. Not saying, not seeing him. He's being such a strong pass catcher. That's part of the reason, why he kind of had some up and down weeks last year. So I think Kenneth Walker, I'm gonna give him a slight edge.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna go Damian Pierce on this one, and it probably makes some sense when you consider that I'm pretty high on Charbonnet, and because I'm high on Charbonnet, it doesn't mean I think Kenneth Walker is bad. It's just I feel like Charbonnet is good enough to siphon some touches from Kenneth Walker, so I don't see him being the workhorse that he was, last year. But Damian Pierce doesn't have much competition in Houston. It's Devin Singletary, and you hear the way that uh, new head coach D'Amico Ryans talks about Damian Pierce as being the guy. They go as he goes on offense, and so you got a defensive minded head coach over there. Obviously, you got that in Seattle as well. But in Seattle, they've got a quarterback who just got paid a decent amount of money, and they've got some, two stud receivers out there on the outside, and an up and coming stud in Jackson Smith and Jigba as well. So a little bit more, opportunities to spread the wealth there in Seattle. And I think Pierce is just going to be a workhorse. Showed well as a rookie last year, and I think is just going to continue, to elevate his game as he gets healthier from that injury last year.
Pete Carroll's still there, yo. It don't matter. It don't matter who's playing receiver, yo. It could be Jerry Rice and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean last year I feel like was the Screw Russ tour. It
Mm-hmm.
was, yeah,
Oh, got it. It makes sense.
last
Makes
year was like the
sense.
Screw Russ tour, but now we're gonna get back to running the football, because that's what Pete does. That's what he does. Hey,
Right, right.
Geno Smith, go out, have a year. We'll draft a receiver with the first round pick, but we're gonna draft a running back in the second round after drafting the running back in the second round last year. So they'll do what they do. Don't worry. But that's why I say I feel like Charbonnet's gonna be a part of that as well. But let's move on to the next group, and I know where you're going with this one, Greg, because we just literally just talked about him. Uh, Rashad White versus Isaiah Pacheco. These guys are going late. Rashad White, the RB26, the 12th pick in the sixth round. Isaiah Pacheco, the RB29, the sixth pick in the seventh round. Um, I'm going Pacheco here. I like Rashad White. I think he's a good prospect, good player. There's just been reports haven't been all too positive out of camp. Sean Tucker has been pushing, the undrafted free agents been pushing for some first team reps there with the Bucks. Uh, I'm with you in terms of Pacheco. I have him as a running back 18, even though his price tag here is the running back 29. And when it comes to Rashad White, I believe I have him. Yeah, actually, I have Rashad White higher. I have Rashad White as the RB24 or as the RB14. So maybe I'm higher on Rashad White than I than I personally think. But my gut says I prefer Pacheco because of the offense, and because of the situation there.
Yeah, I'm with Pacheco. I think a little more proven in his rookie year versus Rashad White. taking that job from Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was also a first-round draft pick, is not easy to do in offense, but Pacheco did it, and he really produced last year. And his game started only started 11 games, but was close to 1,000 yards. Got 830, so that's a very productive number for a team that's going to be doing what he's got to do. And I think he's got some room growth in the receiving game.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there. Let's move on to a pair of teammates here. Brian Robinson versus Antonio Gibson. Brian Robinson, the RB34, the 12th pick in the 8th round. Antonio Gibson, the RB35, the 4th pick in the 9th round. So these guys are essentially going back to back. Greg, where are you at with this pair of teammates here?
Yeah, talking about like how we were talking about standard PPR leagues, like PPR should be standard should equal PPR now. It should be like they should call it standard leagues, like no reception league or something like that.
Non PPR.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So, but to answer that question, I mean, I'm always going to lean towards the PPR option. Like Antonio Gibson is going to be in receiving. I remember we had our draft last week. The Commanders had their preseason game. Antonio Gibson was involved. They kind of split, but you saw Antonio Gibson in the receiving end. He got the touchdown towards the red zone. So they're going to be using both, and they're going to be getting opportunities, but just the maths for Antonio Gibson. 1 point is more than a carry, so for a reception. So I'm gonna take Antonio Gibson for this one.
Regardless of whether you play in a standard league, a PPR league, or a half PPR league, a reception is always worth more than a carry for a running back, simply because the average NFL running back carry is 4 yards. The average NFL running back reception is 8 yards. So regardless of the league that you're in, the math is going to math. You want pass catching running backs. So I'm with you 100%. Give me Antonio Gibson, especially they're on the same team. And again, it's a split that's even enough where one guy is not blowing the other guy out of the water. This is not a case where you've got, I don't know, like Damian Harris and then James White, or LeGarrette Blount and James White, where one guy is strictly the receiver. That's all he does. Antonio Gibson's going to get his opportunities on first and second down as well. And then the other thing is if Antonio Gibson were to get injured, Brian Robinson's role does not change, right? His role does not change. They would get another guy to come in, be the pass catcher, probably sign like Kenyon Drake or Amir Abdullah or somebody, come in, catch the football. But if Brian Robinson gets injured, Antonio Gibson's role changes in a big way because now he becomes a true 3-down back. So give me Gibson, same price. It's a game of probability. I want the probability that I'm going to get a 3-down back.
Yep, I like it.
All right, man. Let's talk about some late running back targets. We've got a few minutes left. So I just want to talk about some guys, Greg, that are maybe going outside the top 36 that we can maybe target late in drafts, because when you're looking late in drafts and it's the 14th, 15th round, or you've only got $1 left in your auction league, you're looking for those guys that have some upside, and typically we want it at the running back position because that's your path to a real league winner. Is a guy, we did it with Kareem Hunt a few years back when he was backing up Spencer Ware. We had picked him up with the last pick in the draft, and next thing you know, Spencer Ware tears his ACL, and we've got a top 12 running back that we just kind of fell into. So these are guys I'm looking to that we're looking to potentially be that for us. And one of the guys I'm looking for is Elijah Mitchell. He's going as the running back 41, the first pick in the 11th round. There was times last year where he had his own role in the offense, beside Christian McCaffrey, where Christian McCaffrey would come in, fill this role as a receiver, but Elijah Mitchell was going to come in and get 15 to 18 to 20 carries in a game and run for 100 yards and a touchdown. So Elijah Mitchell has that opportunity, but he's also got this kind of upside baked in where if something were to happen to McCaffrey, that Mitchell becomes a weekly top 12 running back.
I like that one a lot for sure. 'Cause, yeah, he was still being involved. Yeah, everyone's like, oh, "How's Ryan?" I mean, Elijah Mitchell still getting involved, but they're still doing it. You like that for that offense. If you can get a RB3, RB4 type player that's getting 10, 15 carries, you gotta love that. For me, I was a guy that was hot last year. Jerry McKinnon is definitely a guy I'm looking at to grab in a lot of drafts. Especially he could be a solid flex option for you, solid RB3, RB4 option, with the hopes that, with that touchdown production that he was getting last year, he's a gadget player for the Chiefs. And I think he's going to continue to do that, kind of revitalize his career with the Chiefs and Andy Reid. PPR option. So I think he's a guy that, he's going to give you some RB2 weeks throughout the year, and was doing that down the stretch probably every week. I think he had a touchdown streak of a lot of last year.
Yeah, it was pretty wild that he was almost like he was scoring every single week.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I like that one a lot as well. Another guy I'm going to go with, he's the running back 45 according to 44.com's multi-site ADP. He's a 12th pick in the 11th round. That's Jalen Warren, running back out of Pittsburgh. Um, he is widely known as Najee Harris's backup right now, but he was involved last year as a receiver, had his opportunities as a runner as well. And the offensive coordinator was quoted as saying that they have to find a way to get him on the field more, get him the football more, and it seems like he's going to have a role in this offense, even if Najee Harris remains healthy throughout the year. But as is the case with all these running backs, if something were to happen to Najee Harris, Jalen Warren immediately steps in to a workhorse type role here, where he'll probably end up, as a weekly top 20 option at the position if that were to happen.
Yeah, I like that for sure, especially if Najee Harris gets banged up, and that kind of safety net running back for me is Tanks Bigsby. Man, I'm getting him in all drafts. He's going, I think, around the RB40 range, and let me see, I think, RB48 according to Fantasy Pros ADP. I think that's a steal for me towards the end of draft. He's going to have standalone value, I think, for them. Even if he does it, he's a huge safety net option for this run or offense. And if Travis Etienne was to ever get banged up, he's going to be fill in and get huge production for this team. High prospect out of Clemson, so I like Tank Bisbee a lot.
Yeah, Tank is a good prospect. I mean, like you said, running back 48, the 11th pick in the 12th round. He was another guy that was on my list because, like you mentioned, Travis Etienne, if anything were to happen to him, Tank Bigsby comes in and gets this role. But Tank Bigsby is also different than Travis Etienne, whereas
Right.
you could tell yourself a story where Bigsby has a role week one as being a guy in tandem that works with Etienne, and take it another step. You look at this regime, Doug Peterson and company. Tank Bigsby is the only running back that this regime drafted that's still on the roster. Snoop Connor was drafted last year; they cut him. So right now it's just Tank Bigsby. This regime did not select Travis Etienne, so something to consider. I was able to grab Tank Bigsby late in the draft, and I totally agree. If especially again half PPR leagues, if you are looking for running late in your draft, I would go after Tank Bigsby. Another guy I would say, Tajay Spears, the running back 57, the fifth pick in the 16th round. So you might even make it out of a draft, and he's on waivers. He's the backup running back in Tennessee, behind Derrick Henry, and he's had an awesome preseason. He runs with a lot of speed, has a lot of juice, but he's also been physical. Led the NFL preseason in yards after contact. So he's a guy that I think has the talent level that you would want to take a shot on him, especially if you are the narrative that Derrick Henry is going to wear down, and maybe you're fading him for that particular reason. Not saying that I believe that, but if that's how you feel, then maybe you need to load up on some Tajay Spears.
Like that as well. The only other name I can mention is maybe Zeke. I mean, RB40 he's going, but in the offense that is probably going to be slow. He's going to get carries. I think in the red zone when they're at the goal line, I think it's going to be all Zeke really. I don't think there's going to be no other option for them. So I think he can continue to add to that touchdown production he was doing last year.
Yeah, I like that one as well. There is another name I just realized. I can't believe I missed it. Samaje Perine in Denver. Sean Payton, notorious for running two-back systems. If you think back to Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram, there was even Darren Sproles and Reggie Bush and I forget who, Pierce Thomas. So he likes to run these running back by committees. They signed Samaje Perine as a free agent from Cincinnati. He's going to be there to work with Javonte Williams, who's coming back from an ACL. Samaje Perine is the running back 38, the 12th pick in the 9th round. If you can add him to your roster, it doesn't cost you much. I would highly suggest that you go ahead and do that. But then I'm just going to throw out some names. Raheem Mostert, he's a guy going super late, was productive last year in Miami. Even if Jonathan Taylor is traded there to Miami, because that's one of the names that keeps coming up, the teams that keeps coming up, you still have him at least for 4 games he'll be a starter. And 4 games is like that. 4 games could be very important. That could be the difference between you being 4-0 and 0-4. While you sort some other things out on your team, I'd rather be 4-0 sorting things out on my team, on my bench, starting a Raheem Mostert, trying to figure things out rather than being 0-4 or 1-3.
Yep.
Him, Tyler Algier, because why not? And that's really it for me.
Word.
Oh, Roshan Johnson, and that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. All right. Well, if we got nothing else here, we are gonna wrap it up, and we'll obviously be on here tomorrow to talk about some fantasy wide receivers and how we're going to attack this wide receiver position and some of our superlatives and discuss our top 3s and go through the top 12s. Anything else you want to say to the people before we close this one out, Greg?
Nah, it was a good show. Glad we got to hype my man Saquon. Wide receivers, favorite position, so it should be good.
Well, you heard it here. We have concluded our running back show, so everybody have a good one. We'll catch y'all tomorrow when we break down the wide receiver position, and we're out of here. Peace.
We out.